A woman reached out to my Blue Sky inbox and says, "Hi, I watch your videos on YouTube. They're awesome. I was wondering if you wanted my story from a past life, so to speak. I can never fully tell it myself. My story explains why." And I'm like, "What's your story about?" She says, "If I were to name it, I would go with the life of an abused South Florida trophy socialite who got out. The new government being built is bringing up a familiar name connected to my son's dad." And I'm like, "Oh, yes, let's hear it." So I'm reading this for the first time with you all. She says, "All right, I'll start at the beginning, but I'm going to bounce it back and forth. So please try to stick with me. This isn't an easy story to tell. So I used to have a profile on this app, What's Your Price or something. It was an app where old, lonely, rich men paid pretty women to go to dinner, trips, and events with them. No sex or anything like that. No going to anyone's home. Just getting paid money for eating free food or whatever in public and keeping guys who often had lost their wives recently company. Most everyone I encountered was very nice and respectful. I liked both money and food, plus the company wasn't too bad. I saw the soft side of some powerful men. I kept myself safe and always in public. It was nice. This is how I met my ex. He hired me for a dinner date, and I got to choose my favorite restaurant. He was so charming. He was almost twice my age. He lied about it on his profile and used a very blurry image. He is a very well known South Florida neurosurgeon. He says, very, a celebrity in the medical world there. This man, I'm going to call him Joe from here on out. Picture could have been under the dictionary definition of the dark triad disorders. I'm not exaggerating. So, like all narcissists, he began with the love bombing. We dated for 3 months before he took me on vacation to my favorite place, and we stayed at my favorite hotel. That was the first time we had protected sex, and I got pregnant. I think I got baby trapped, but I love my kid however he got here, so F it. Fast forward through the pregnancy. The mask he wore started slipping. He found this massive connected duplex 2 blocks from the beach with a view of the river. 6 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, Jesus, 2 kitchens, 2 living rooms. They were mirror images of each other connected inside. We had planned to have one side be his workplace and the other be our home. He even let me choose the home side. The house hadn't been redecorated since the 1990s, and probably for good reason. The decor then was pricey then and extreme now. Wedgwood bathroom fixtures and marble everything. The state of the house will be important later. The mask dropped completely when I moved in. The battle lines were drawn. His workplace became his side, where he lived, but always had access to my side, where my child and I lived. I managed to slowly push him out before he could even move into my side. At least I had that. Prior to my child's birth, I learned my purpose pretty quickly. I was to go to meetings, events, parties, fundraisers, etc., with tech giants, politicians, athletes, business owners, yada, yada, yada. I had to dress a certain way and cover my tattoos. I was to be introduced, smile like Wednesday Adam, just was let out of that terrifying cabin in the Adams Family Values, because I look like that when I try, and shut up until asked a question. Okay. Then I was to speak intelligently and educated, try to stifle that twang we Southerners developed sometimes. Sometimes I got to hang with other trophy women or the older business women who would treat me like a child. I was the trophy wife minus the wife part. I've never been married because, get this, I don't like the origin concept of ownership and transactional nature. I believe if you love someone, it shouldn't matter. Ironic, right? I am disabled, epilepsy since childhood. All I had was disability and financial abuse. I was fully trapped. Life looked different behind closed doors for us. There were cameras everywhere and alarm to tell him when I left or entered the house. He would track me or have or hire someone else to do it. Mostly he didn't let us, my kid and I, leave very much. The pandemic made everything worse. That was a prison. By 2020, things had gotten beyond hellish. He abused me in every way possible except physically. He drugged me because he's a doctor. I believe he didn't try to hit me because I was younger and faster and a trained fighter. Joe was evil, but not that stupid. While he did this, he neglected my child and the entire duplex, causing the roof to collapse and remain unrepaired for about 4 years, to my knowledge. It was still like that last I saw. Black mold to grow, rodents to infest the house, etc. CPS was called on that man so many times, I called them myself. Shortly after my kid was born, I went into the psych hospital due to postpartum depression. It wasn't so bad. I made some friends in outpatient and had therapy. Joe stalked me there too. He said he had eyes everywhere. In retrospect, given what my own psychiatrist said to me in the future, I have reason to believe my very own psych doctor, another medical big shot who I had seen for over a decade, were those eyes. HIPAA laws be damned. He and Joe went to the same clubs. My therapist, however, noticed something suspicious and slipped me the phone number for a women's helpline. I called them and explained the situation. They said all I could do was keep evidence, pack a go bag, and make a plan. I did. It took about 5 years. Wow. If I tell everything, we will be here all year. So if you want to know, I can go into more situations, events, details, whatever later. Let me know. But I'll give you the bare bones now. We knew about COVID before the media even announced it. A lot of those people did. They know about a lot way before we do. I know there was a ton of shady stuff going on, but I held on to my plausible deniability because all that matters was my child and getting out. I checked out of the relationship before my kid was a year old. Joe was just my kid's father, not even dad, because Joe only cared about my kid when we were in public. I don't think he even changed a diaper or threw a ball with the kid, except that one time it was recorded and posted to Joe's Facebook account. But I still put on the trophy wife smile while planning my escape. He bought it. It's not like I had sex with him willingly. I don't know, the drugs. While doing this, I built a business. I needed some funding to get out. I still have that store. One day I found him trying to hack my phone, and the idiot left a piece of paper with my swipe code in the bathroom. It had fallen out of his wallet, probably a power move, but whatever. I blocked him on all accounts. I told him exactly what I thought. I triggered a narcissistic rage in him, which I don't suggest anyone doing. He physically attacked me in front of my child. I don't play that. I told my kid to hide and turned on my camera. He slammed me into the edge of a counter and tried to punch me while I was trying to get downstairs. I'm still proud of keeping my cool then. I blocked everything he threw and didn't hit my son's father in front of my child. Remember, this is all on video. At some point, I think Joe got confused and took my phone and kept recording. He thought my phone was his. He recorded himself. All right, kept recording, including himself threatening to call the police on his father if daddy didn't get off mommy. My child was 5 years old. When the police came, they didn't want to see the video. They did nothing, told us to go back to our sides because Joe was a big shot doctor. The same thing happened over and over with many government agencies. I was slandered in court, discriminated for my disability by a government contractor, received an anonymous email for someone in court saying what they are doing is messed up with the CEO's email address. I don't think the contractor works there anymore. I was even asked to prove my race because I am 50-50 native and white, but have light skin. I was also adopted, but since I legally medically use marijuana for epilepsy and I don't drink, I am clearly a drug addict and needed a hair follicle test. I would like to point out that Joe was in trouble with CPS, not me. I even went back to Florida to show CPS public content of my child on YouTube, where they were not wearing enough clothing and filming such disturbing and morbid stuff in an environment where he could access drugs, knives, etc. Joe is a hoarder, and CPS has repeatedly told him he would lose my son forever if he didn't clean and repair the house. I mean, some of the reports I saw had things I had no knowledge of, including the fridge over on his side being taped shut so my kid couldn't access food he could on my side, or jars of urine everywhere. I didn't even know it was that bad there. My child didn't spend much time there back then, but geez. When I showed the digital stuff to CPS, the agent seemed horrified until her boss came in and shut the whole thing down. They got all mad faced when I said I already reported it to the FBI Cyber Crimes Department. I said Joe was connected. This is what connections do. Eventually, some of the cops became my allies. So did lower level clerks and CPS workers. I had years of horrific evidence of abuse against myself and my child, and the big bosses chose to believe a man with a long list of assorted charges, including past violent DV charges. Everyone, including my own lawyer, looked at the evidence and the past cases and background. They all said different versions of the same thing. This makes no sense. I don't understand. That's what's supposed to happen. If I were to describe Joe, he's almost exactly like our very own, very hated Teflon Don, right down to the false germophobia, just with less power. Related social groups, though. While bouncing from law enforcement organization to courthouse to CPS to the DA and back, I filed for an emergency restraining order and it was granted immediately. I made an algorithm with everything I would want and could afford on my own in a place to live, far away. If I had stayed, I would have been harassed, tormented, stalked, or worse. Thanks to some amazing women, like my mom, a doctor, not the psych doctor, and therapist, I was able to move across the country going on 3 years ago to a place and lifestyle where I knew nothing and nobody, which was way preferable to my situation in Florida. New address was redacted from court records. The morning before court for the restraining order, Joe stood downstairs and yelled up, trying to convince me not to go through with it. Medical professionals have trouble when they have a restraining order against them for DV. He offered me his life insurance policy. Upon his death, I would receive $10 million. I went to court because F that. My 70 something year old mom and I road tripped to my new apartment in what I originally thought was a small rural town. I could breathe for the first time when we crossed the Florida state line. The day DeSantis passed the Don't Say Gay law, we left Florida screaming gay out of the car window until we crossed the border. Freedom was something I hadn't had in a while, and it was effing beautiful. I moved into a building with a lot of military people and my dogs. I was afraid for my life. I went to a ton of therapy. I made some friends who were so different from the people I knew in Florida. I met my partner on Tinder, of all places. I was looking for friends or literally anyone who could tell me more about the place I moved to. But I had never been on Tinder prior, and I admit I was kind of naive on that. Learned fast about Tinder, though. I got the message from my partner right before I was going to delete the app. First question he asked me was, "Are you a Democrat or a Republican?" You see, we're in a very red area, in a very blue state, and my partner was liberal. Apparently, he couldn't deal with another MAGA supporter either. LOL. When I met him in person, he was the first person I have ever met that I felt comfortable with immediately. It was strange. I'm usually not comfortable with new people for a while. Turns out he's one of the best people I have ever met. He reminds me so much of. He has helped me keep calm and grounded with this hellish custody battle, which is an extremely uneven playing field. My partner and I eventually ended up moving in together in a much smaller rural town. Now I'm also a de facto stepmom to two teenagers. We have three dogs, one we raised from a puppy together, and a healthy relationship. He's a delivery driver, and I still have my little store. We are equals in our relationship. Life is very different now. I'm very happy despite the struggles, though. I made it out mostly, and to try to help others do so on Cura, or at least cope with their situation as much as possible. I haven't healed completely, still have some PTSD, probably always will in some way, but I have recovered enough that I don't think of Joe unless I'm reminded or he finds loopholes to exploit in my restraining order. I moved on from that life and I'm now just fighting for the final scene in this comedy of horrors. One of Trump's cabinet picks reminded me. Plus, I emailed my lawyer this morning, so I thought I would share this. Whew, that is one tale. Definitely very interesting, full of twists and turns, and I'm totally sure that she knows so much behind the scenes stuff. Like I said before, I didn't actually read this story before I did it for you all. So we're finding all of this out together. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or comments for her. I will make sure that she sees this. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to like,